This is the story of the elephant's child. It's a true story, and it happened just so. Long ago, in the high and far-off times when the world was new, the elephant had no trunk. He only had a blackish, bulgy nose, no bigger than a boot. He could wriggle it from side to side, but he couldn't pick things up with it. But there was one elephant, a new elephant, an elephant's child who was different from all the other elephants, 'cause he was full of satiable curiosity, which means he asked ever so many questions. He asked his tall aunt, the ostrich, why her feathers grew just so. He asked his tall uncle, the giraffe, why his skin was spotty. He asked his broad aunt, the hippopotamus, why her eyes were red. He asked his hairy uncle, the baboon, why melons tasted just so. And still he was full of satiable curiosity. One fine morning, the elephant's child thought of a fine new question. The question was, what does the crocodile have for dinner? By and by, when that was finished, he came upon Colo Bird, and he said, "My father has spanked me, my mother has spanked me, and all my aunts and uncles have spanked me. And still I want to know what the crocodile has for dinner." Then Colo Bird uttered a mournful cry and told him to go to the banks of the great gray, green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees, and find out. The very next morning, the satiable elephant's child set off on his long journey. He took with him 100 pounds of bananas, 100 pounds of sugar cane, and 17 melons. He said goodbye to all his dear family, and he went away, eating melons and throwing the rind away because he couldn't pick it up. He went from Grahamstown to Kimberley, and from Kimberley he went east by north, till at last he came to the banks of the great gray, green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees, precisely as Colo Bird had said. Now, until that very day and hour and minute, the elephant's child had never seen a crocodile. The first thing he did see was a bicolored python rock snake. "Excuse me," said the elephant's child. "Have you seen such a thing as a crocodile in these parts?" "Have I seen a crocodile?" said the bicolored python rock snake. "Huh! What will you ask me next?" "Well, excuse me," said the elephant's child, "but could you please tell me what he has for dinner?" "Oh, that's odd," said the elephant's child. "My father has spanked me, my mother has spanked me, and all my aunts and uncles have spanked me for my satiable curiosity. I suppose that's why you've spanked me, too." He said goodbye to the bicolored python rock snake and went on along the shores of the great gray, green, greasy Limpopo River until he stood on what he thought was a log. But it was really the crocodile. "Excuse me," said the elephant's child most politely, "but have you seen a crocodile in these parts?" "Come closer, little one," said the crocodile. "Why do you ask such questions?" "Well, excuse me," said the elephant's child, But my father has spanked me, my mother has spanked me, and all my aunts and uncles have spanked me, and the bicolored python rock snake who spanked hardest of all. And if it's all the same to you, I'd rather not be spanked anymore. Come closer, little one, said the crocodile, for I am the crocodile. And he wept crocodile tears to show it was quite true. Well, you're the very person I've been looking for, gasped the elephant's child. Will you please tell me what you have for dinner? Come closer, little one, said the crocodile, and I'll whisper. I think I'll begin with the elephant's child.
Let go,
said the elephant's child.
you're hurting me. Help,
Called the elephant's child.
this is too much for me.
The bicolored python rock snake heard the cries for help and thought, oh, rash and inexperienced elephant's child, see what has become of you because of your satiable curiosity. If I do not assist you, you will certainly become the crocodile's dinner. And he pulled, and the crocodile pulled, but the elephant's child and the bicolored python snake pulled the hardest. After the elephant's child had thanked the bicolored python rock snake for saving his life, he wrapped his poor pulled nose in cool banana leaves, hoping they would make it shrink. "Huh," said the bicolored python rock snake. "Some people don't know when they're on to a good thing." So the elephant's child sat and sat, waiting for his nose to grow shorter. But it didn't. The crocodile had pulled it out into a really, truly trunk, the same as all elephants have today. "Vantage number one," said the bicolored python rock snake. "You couldn't have done that with a little boot nose." "Vantage number two," said the bicolored python rock snake. "You couldn't have done that with a little boot nose." "Vantage number three," said the bicolored python rock snake. "Now, how do you feel about being spanked?" "I should not like it at all," said the elephant's child. "How would you like to spank someone else?" said the bicolored python rock snake. "Oh, I should like that very much," smiled the elephant's child. "Well," said the bicolored python rock snake, "you'll find that new nose of yours very useful for spanking with." The elephant's child thanked him, and he said he'd remember that when he went home to all his dear family. He coiled his new trunk to hide it and said, "How do you do?" They were all delighted to see him and said, "Come over here and be spanked for your satiable curiosity." "Oh ho," said the elephant's child. "You peoples know nothing about real spanking." "Oh, bananas," said his brothers and sisters. "Where did you learn that trick? And what have you done to your nose?" "I got a new one from the crocodile on the banks of the great gray green greasy Limpopo River. I asked him what he had for dinner, and he gave me this to keep." "It looks very ugly," said his hairy uncle, the baboon. "It does," said the elephant's child. but it's very useful. At last, his dear family couldn't stand the spanking of the satiable elephant's child any longer. So all the elephants went off to borrow new noses from the crocodile. Then nobody spanked anybody anymore. And ever since that day, all the elephants you will ever see, besides those you won't, have trunks precisely like the trunk of the satiable elephant child. This is the story of how the rhinoceros got his skin. It's a true story, and it happened just so. Long ago, in the high and far-off times when the world was new, there was an uninhabited island on the shores of the Red Sea. And on this uninhabited island on the shores of the Red Sea, there lived a Parsi called Pistanji Bamanji. He lived all by himself with nothing but his hat, his knife, and his cooking stove of the kind you must particularly never touch. One day, he took flour and water and currants and plums and sugar and things and made himself a cake. The Parsi always made cakes for breakfast, dinner, tea, and supper, but this was the most superior cake he had ever made. It was 2 feet across and 3 feet thick. And he baked it and baked it and baked it till it was all done golden brown and smelt most sentimental. He was just about to eat it when there came down to the beach, from the altogether uninhabited interior, a most ill-mannered rhinoceros named Storks. So called because he breathed through his mouth instead of his nose. He looked like all rhinoceroses do today, with a horn on his nose and 2 piggy eyes, but his skin fitted him smooth and tight, without a wrinkle or a fold. And he was very proud of it. All the same, he had no manners then, and he has no manners now, and he never will have any manners. Without so much as a good afternoon, he lumbered up to Pistanji Bamanji with his beady piggy eye fixed on that beautiful cake. After greedily gobbling it up, the rhinoceros went back to the altogether uninhabited interior, waving his ill-mannered tail without so much as a thank you very much. Then the Parsi came down from his palm tree, and as the rays of the sun reflected from his hat, in more than oriental splendor, he cooked up a magic aimed at that greedy, ill-mannered rhinoceros. And the magic said, "Them that takes cakes which the Parsi man bakes makes dreadful mistakes." And there was to be a great deal of trouble to come from that magic for that ill-mannered, bad-tempered rhinoceros. Because there was a heat wave on that uninhabited island, on the shores of the Red Sea, and everybody got very, very, very warm. The Parsi took off his hat, but the rhinoceros took off his skin. In those days, it fastened down the front with 3 buttons like a Macintosh. He left his skin under a shady tree, and, still full of the Parsi's cake, he waddled off down the beach to go for a swim. Presently, Pistanji Bamanji came by and he found the skin. And he smiled. And he smiled. And he smiled. And he rubbed his hands with glee and danced and danced and danced. He danced all the way back to his cooking stove, of the sort you must particularly never touch. And he filled his hat with cake crumbs. For remember, the Parsi never ate anything but cake. And he never swept away the crumbs. Then he danced all the way back to the rhinoceros's skin. And he took that skin, and he shook that skin, and he scrubbed that skin, and he rubbed that skin, just as full of old, dry, stale, stickly, tickly cake crumbs and some burned currants as ever it could possibly hold. Then he climbed up to the top of a tree and waited for the rhinoceros to come out of the water and put on his skin. And the rhinoceros did. He buttoned it up with the 3 buttons. And it tickled like cake crumbs in bed. Then he scratched a little, but that only made it worse. Then he scratched a lot, but that only made it a lot worse. Then he lay down on the sand and rolled and rolled and rolled. And the cake crumbs tickled him worse and worse and worse. Then he rubbed and rubbed and rubbed against the spiky bark of a palm tree, and he rubbed so hard that he rubbed his skin into a great fold over his shoulders. And another fold formed underneath him where his buttons used to be, for he had rubbed the buttons clean away. And his temper got worse and worse. And his skin got more and more crinkly, for the cake crumbs were trapped inside forever and ever. And my, how they tickled. Then Pistanji Bamanji came down from the palm tree wearing his hat, from which the rays of the sun were reflected in more than oriental splendor. He smiled at the bad-tempered rhinoceros, 'cause he knew his magic had worked and that it served that grumpy rhinoceros right. And he went back home to make more cakes on his cooking stove of the kind that you must particularly never touch. And the ill-mannered, bad-tempered, greedy rhinoceros went back to the altogether uninhabited interior, very angry and very scratchy indeed. And ever since that day, every rhinoceros you will ever see, besides those you won't, have great folds of wrinkly, crinkly skin and a very bad temper. Exactly like Storks, the first rhinoceros in the world. This is the story of the beginning of the armadillos. It's a true story, and it happened just so. Long ago, in the high and far-off times, there was a stickly, prickly hedgehog, and he lived on the banks of the turbid Amazon, eating shelly snails and things. And he had a friend, a slow, solid tortoise, who lived on the banks of the turbid Amazon, eating green lettuces and things. But also, and at the same time, there was a painted jaguar, and he ate everything he could catch. When he couldn't catch deer or monkeys, he would eat frogs and beetles. And when he couldn't catch frogs and beetles, he went to his mother jaguar, and she told him how to catch hedgehogs and tortoises. Son, son, said his mother ever so many times, graciously waving her tail, when you find a hedgehog, you must drop him into the water, and then he will uncoil and you can eat him. When you catch a tortoise, you must scoop him out of his shell with your paw. One beautiful night, the painted jaguar found stickly, prickly hedgehog and slow and solid tortoise. They couldn't run away, so Stickly Prickly curled himself up, and Slow and Solid drew his head and feet into his shell. Now listen to me, you two, 'cause this is very important. My mother said that when I meet a hedgehog, I am to drop him in the water, and then he will uncoil. And when I meet a tortoise, I am to scoop him out of his shell with my paw. Now, which of you is hedgehog, and which is tortoise? Are you sure of what your mummy told you, said Stickly Prickly Hedgehog. Are you quite sure? Perhaps she said that when you uncoil a tortoise, you must shell him out of the water with a scoop. And when you paw a hedgehog, you must drop him on the shell.
Are you sure of what your mummy told you?
Said Slow and Solid Tortoise.
Are you quite sure? Perhaps she said that when you water a hedgehog, you must drop him into your paw, and when you meet a tortoise, you must shell him till he uncoils.
don't think it was at all like that, said Painted Jaguar. Please say that again, more distinctly. When you scoop water with your paw, you uncoil it with a hedgehog.
But, said Slow and Steady, when you paw your meat, you drop it into a tortoise with a scoop. Now do you understand?
You are making my spots ache. Just tell me simply, which of you is hedgehog and which is tortoise? I shan't tell you, but you can scoop me out of my shell if you like. Aha, said Painted Jaguar. Now I know that you are tortoise. Now I know that he isn't tortoise at all.
But I am tortoise. Your mother was quite right. She said you were to scoop me out of my shell with your paw. Begin.
What'll happen if I do? Said Jaguar.
I don't know, because I've never been scooped out of my shell before. If you want to see me swim away, you've only to drop me into the water.
I don't believe you, said Painted Jaguar. You've mixed up all the things my mother told me, till I don't know whether I'm on my head or my painted tail. She told me to drop one of you two into the water. You seem so anxious to be dropped in that I think really you do not want to be. So jump in and be quick about it.
I warn you, your mummy won't be pleased.
If you say another word about my mother, said Painted Jaguar, I'll... But he never finished the sentence. He watched speechless as Slow and Solid happily swam over to the far bank where both he and Stickly Prickly were safely out of reach of poor, puzzled Painted Jaguar, who was very upset and went roaring home to his mummy to tell her all about it. Son, son, said his mother ever so many times, graciously waving her tail, what have you been doing that you should not have done? Well, sobbed Painted Jaguar, I tried to scoop something that said it wanted to be scooped out of its shell, and now my paw is full of prickles. You must have tried to scoop a hedgehog. You should have dropped him in the water. I did that to the other thing, and he swam away, and I haven't had anything to eat all day, and I'm ever so hungry. Son, son, said his mother, graciously waving her tail, a hedgehog curls up in a ball, and his prickles stick out every which way at once, and he cannot swim. I don't like this old lady one little bit, said Stickly Prickly. That description was far too clear. Even Painted Jaguar will not forget that. A tortoise cannot curl himself, Mother Jaguar went on, but he can draw his legs and head into his shell, and he is a good swimmer. Painted Jaguar went off to the banks of the turbid Amazon, saying to himself, can't curl, but can swim, slow, solid, that's him. Curls up, but can't swim, Stickly Prickly, that's him. He'll never forget that. Whatever can we do? Thought Slow and Solid.
How about if you were able to swim and I were able to curl up? That would fool Painted Jaguar.
Excellent idea, said Stickly Prickly. Let's start practicing now. Look, said Tortoise.
I can wrap my hind legs round my ears.
Excellent, said Hedgehog, but it's straining your back plates a little. Oh, said Slow and Solid.
I've noticed that your prickles seem to be melting into one another.
When morning came, they found they were both quite different from what they'd been before. Oh, won't Painted Jaguar be surprised, they laughed. Let's go and find him. Good morning, said Stickly Prickly. And how is your dear mummy this morning? She's quite well, thank you. But you must forgive me if I do not at this precise moment recall your name. Don't you remember what your mummy told you? Can't curl but can swim. Stickly Prickly, that's him. Curls up but can't swim. Slow Solid, that's him. Mother, Mother, said Painted Jaguar. There are two new animals by the turbid Amazon today. The one you said couldn't swim can. And the one you said couldn't curl does. And they are rolling round and round, and I'm ever so confused. Son, son, said Mother Jaguar. A hedgehog is a hedgehog, and a tortoise is a tortoise, and can never be anything else. But it isn't a hedgehog, and it isn't a tortoise. It's a little bit of both, and I don't know its proper name. Nonsense, said Mother Jaguar. Everything has its proper name. I shall call it Armadillo till I find out the real one. And I should leave it alone if I were you. So Painted Jaguar did as he was told, especially about leaving it alone. And ever since that day, all along the banks of the turbid Amazon, every hedgehog and every tortoise has been called Armadillo, precisely like Stickly Prickly, Slow and Steady, that grew to be the first armadillo in the world.